Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Our GLADA CCAT Leadership Series will cover conversations about interviewing, how to negotiate for benefits, and starting your new first job as an ATC. So today we have a panel of speakers. They all work for Athletico, which is a physical therapy company based out of Illinois. So I will turn it over to our speakers. We'll have each of our speakers introduce themselves, share their current role in their job, and what their educational background is. So I don't know if anybody wants to start.
I can start. Hi, everybody. My name is Payten Gerjerts. I am a certified athletic trainer, and the title that I have at Athletico is Director of Athletic Training Services. So in our world, we are in many states, mainly in the Midwest and on the East Coast. We have about 400 athletic trainers that work in the athletic training department. And then we have another subset of athletic trainers who actually work on our on-site or industrial team as well. I got my undergrad in AT at the University of Northern Iowa. And then I moved to Chicago and did my master's at the University of Illinois of Chicago, and have been at Athletico ever since. So I'm finishing up my 19th year at Athletico, and I've served in many different roles, all of them specific to athletic training in my tenure with Athletico. Thomas, you want to go?
Sure, why not? I'm Thomas Keeling. I'm the benefits manager at Athletico. I've been in the HR space, HR benefits, for about 15 years now. I started out my undergrad in criminal investigations and forensic anthropology, so a long way from there. I actually went into the legal field as a corporate paralegal, and that's where I went into the employment law space. I received my master's certification in paralegal studies, then went on to my master's of jurisprudence in business law. So a lot of this all around how to develop compliant programs. So it's led me to the benefit space and continuing to grow there. I'll pass it to Gabby.
Thanks, Thomas. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, good. I was unsure. So hi, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Gambrell-Jackson. I am a corporate recruiter here at Athletico. I first attended Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville, and then later finished at DePaul University. I started my career in HR as I always wanted to be on the human resources side of the house. Started off as an HR coordinator and was able to learn so much under the HR umbrella. At that time, at a time when I wasn't sure what my specialty would be, that entry-level coordinator role kind of gave me the visibility I needed to truly vet out what I wanted to do in HR. And then I fell in love with recruiting, and now I have many years of recruiting experience. I like to call myself a corporate matchmaker, as I like to pair great people with amazing opportunities. Here we are, and I actually help our athletic training staff as well in terms of recruiting great talent. So thank you.
All right, so our first question for the panel is going to be, what are some important things for applicants to consider when going over a job posting before deciding if it's a good fit to apply to? I don't know who wants to start, or whatever works.
I'll go really quick, just because I look at job postings all day, every day. So I'd say what's most important, I think, is doing your homework and your research on the company itself, right? And so obviously when looking at the actual job postings, you want to pay attention to what's in the job description, the details that are listed in the job description. The qualifications are super important. I think especially in the AT world, knowing what you're actually qualified to do. And then looking at those job specifics, if there's travel involved or anything like that, and kind of anything that uses like extensive movement or anything, just really pay attention to the specifics because they're usually outlined like in the job description somewhere. And then I'd also say, like, when considering a job, after reviewing the posting, just looking through like that company's website to get a feel for like the company's culture and values. Really looking for things that are important to you as an individual and like what's important to your needs from an employer. So if like inclusion and diversity is super important to you, see if that stands out like on the company's website. Look for different information there. It may be like employee testimonials or something like that that can kind of speak to the kind of employer that that company is.
Some advice that I would give, and I've gone through this both with people who are entering the job force for the first time, and or maybe they've done something, something for, let's just say 3 or 4 years, and maybe they feel like they're ready for the next thing, is I think there's a subset of categories that is very specific to your job, your commute, your schedule, like Gabby mentioned, I really think the values that you believe strongly in, the content of your work, in our space, it may be being in athletics versus being in a physician's office versus being in the industry, right? So I think listing out those things and really prioritizing which one is going to trump which. So for example, if your commute was going to be 30 miles, but it's going to be a job for the content that really jazzes you up, so you don't mind that your commute's 30 miles, then I would say that the content kind of supersedes your commute. But if that commute is 30 miles and that's way too far for the work that you would be doing, then really you can tell for yourself, like maybe for me, my commute or the close, how close it is, my work is to my house is actually more important than what the content is. And so I think for you to go through and put those things out that could be impactful and then make a decision around what then would be the job that you're looking for. In our world, I'll use a very real example is our schedule as athletic trainers, regardless of your setting, is typically not just Monday through Friday. There's many of us that work on the weekends. And I think really asking yourself, is that what you're open to doing? And if you love the people that you're working with, or you love the team that you're with, or whatever that may be, and that makes you feel more strongly about doing the job versus I may work on a Saturday, I really think that is helpful in directing you to what those positions are. So doing kind of an internal audit for where your best job satisfaction is going to be, I think it's pretty critical to making a decision around where you want to apply. I think commute ends up being really important for people. Just as an aside, just in talking to people, it's interesting that how long you're going to be in the car, how long it would take you to get to work, I think actually ends up being very important for folks. Did we lose them? There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question that we had was, how should an applicant approach a phone call interview or a Zoom interview versus an in-person interview?
Oh, I love this question, Abigail. So I would say they should approach them all the same. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you're going to go into somewhere for an interview, obviously there's a designated space, right, to have that interview. Usually it's a private space, so you can focus on the conversation. So I would say, if it's a phone call, still put yourself in a space that's conducive to an actual interview. Give yourself that privacy, give yourself that quiet place so that you can focus your attention on that phone call. Don't be distracted with like typing or working while you're on the call, or I don't know, folding clothes, playing with your dog, anything like that. Like, just get to a place where you're like super focused. If it's a video call, I would say it's important to be like, square in the camera, looking in the camera like you're having eye contact as if you were in person. So still getting that face to face, nodding your head when someone's talking, let them know that you're actually there, that you're listening, that you're engaged in the conversation. Still have great posture. And then, just kill all the distractions around you. I would say it's super important to not be driving. I can't say how many times like I've had phone screens with people who are like in their car driving, and it's like it's hard to predict outside noise or confusion. So put yourself in a space where you can actually predict like what's about to happen, right? So I stand on the fact that just treat the phone call or the video call just like it's an in-person interview and give your undivided attention.
I would also get curious on why it is you may be having virtual versus in person. Some of it really is, I think it's been a very pleasant addition, complement to the interview process where, a few years ago, doing any sort of a video call, I feel like I'd be like, yeah, no way, we're not doing that. But it really, I think, has opened us up to then an opportunity to get to candidates quicker when we can potentially, do some sort of, a Teams call or a Zoom or whatever that may look like. But I would want to know if, and maybe you're in the state of Washington and you're interviewing for a role in Georgia, right? So that doesn't make sense for you. You're not going to get there tomorrow for an in-person. But I would definitely follow up with if there are any in-person opportunities. So maybe this is a phone screen, you're talking to a recruiter first. Maybe this is a first interview with a hiring manager. But to know what the steps are after that, and getting curious, because I do feel like while cameras and phones are great, it's this great avenue that we do have. I think, feeling and seeing and touching, the real space that you may be in. So if that's the clinic that you may be working at, or maybe the affiliate that you are at, I think asking for an opportunity to meet folks in person can also help enhance your own decision in whether or not you want to take this job. So I love the opportunity that we can use this as one of kind of the tools in the toolbox. But I think as a candidate, you should get really curious if you can meet people in person, if logistically it is feasible.
Yeah, and I absolutely echo that. I really support having the ability to do this. It's a great tool to put that out there, but there's certain things that you just can't, gauge unless you're in person. So sometimes it's the atmosphere, it's the clinic, it's the setting. Get to know those people and have that opportunity to really make an impression. So if you have that opportunity, take it. If you can be in person, I think it really does change the game. And then you can get a real feel for the people you're going to work with and work for and what you're going to be involved in.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. When interviewing for a job, obviously a big topic is compensation. What are some examples of non-compensation benefits that an applicant may be offered, and how would you suggest negotiating for these benefits?
Yeah, there's too many. And when I'd say benefits, I mean, a lot of people think health benefits. It's my medical, my prescription, dental, vision, and those are all great things. And that's definitely something you want to look into. Dive deep into those benefits. Find out, what's involved in that. Are there co-pays? Are there co-insurance, deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums? But think outside of the health benefits. I mean, when you're thinking about compensation, you want to think about total compensation. So it's not just about the salary coming in, it's about what benefits are being provided. Because at the end of the day, you're going to need these benefits. You're going to need these things for yourself or your family. And it can be expensive. I mean, an employer covering that cost, that's huge. So looking into more than just those medical benefits, and what else is there? I mean, there's additional insurance benefits you can look at. Life insurance, that could be a huge one, because could that be employer paid or employee paid? So it's looking at what the employer portion is being covered and how that's impacting you, because those employer costs, they're heavy. So sometimes you're seeing employers cover 70% or more of those premiums, and that's really taking a lift off of you. If you're on another plan, or you're moving on to a spouse's plan, or just looking at the marketplace, you could be looking at some very heavy premiums, and your employer can take that off of you. But there's more to it. So looking at life insurance, looking at additional plans like hospital indemnity, critical illness, accident, these are things that can supplement your other plans. Not everyone offers these, so that's why you're going to really be diving deep into that. Get that, ask for that information from the employer. Don't be afraid. Hey, I'd like to see a little bit more. What do you offer? Because that could be disability insurance, short-term disability, long-term disability. Not every employer is going to offer those. And sometimes not every employer is going to pay for those. Those could be employer paid, and that could take a really big chunk off of you. Or you could be paying, anywhere from $15 to $45, depending on the plan. So you're tallying that up. So every benefit that you have, that's adding into that compensation and what it's covering. And of course, there's, your paid parental and paid maternity benefits. And I will say these are really great benefits. They're very rare though. So they're trending, of course, in the industry, but there are a lot of rare benefits. So looking at that overall package, it's not just those general benefits. Wellness, well-being, mental health, meditation tools, wellness programs, fitness reimbursement. These are huge things. But look even deeper than that. You're getting into your career. You want to start out early. You want to look at retirement savings. Do they offer 401k? Do they offer pensions, IRAs? There's a plethora of different types of benefits that can be offered. And you want to look really deep into that package. Now, when it comes into negotiations, I think that varies. And that's what's going to kind of help you gauge salary-wise and what you're looking for total compensation, because maybe they have just general medical, dental, vision, you're seeing, a higher salary, but then you're missing out on all these other benefits, the retirement plans, disability insurance, voluntary plans. Maybe their PTO plans are a little bit higher than the others. PTO, I know that's a big topic, especially in negotiations. Employees always want to ask, can I get more? Don't be afraid to ask that. It is a good question to ask. And I think PTO is a huge thing that could be negotiated, but it also can't be. There are a lot of employers, and it is very common for them to have PTO grades. So there's set PTO grades by position, maybe by how many years of service, and that's really to create equity and consistency. So you're being fair in providing these benefits to your employees. But by doing that, you have these set plans, so then maybe you can't negotiate. So don't be completely turned away if you feel like, oh, they said I can't negotiate that. That's okay. It might be common. But look at what else they're offering. What else are they putting in there? What type of paid holidays do they have? If you're looking more into the voluntary benefits, sometimes there's like home, auto, legal, student loan resources. That's a huge one. That's something that's also rare, unfortunately. You don't see a lot of student loan reimbursement, but that could be something that you could leverage. So looking into what all these benefits that they have to offer, because there's more than just medical, dental, vision. There's so much more than that, and you want to really dive into that package and see what you're getting.
Yeah, I would say from my perspective, one of the things I've learned, and especially when we're working with offering a position to somebody who is transitioning into the practice, so they're just coming out of school, they're getting ready to start their first job, is a lot of times you're thinking about today, but you may not be thinking about 10 years down the road or 15 years down the road. So when you talk about, I know for a fact, there's been a change in the market as relates to like infertility, where, 10 years ago, it was very rare that I feel like that companies had any sort of an infertility-based benefit. And I feel like that's probably trending more towards common to have some sort of, benefit related to that. When you talk about a paid parental leave, whether you are an adopting parent or a parent that is, giving birth, or you're the spouse or the partner of somebody who may be giving birth, what does that mean? And then obviously the retirement component of it is, I don't know the compounding interest model, but I know that it's very impactful. It's like, when you're 24, 25 years old, and if you're getting a 401k match or whatever that may be for the particular job that you're looking at, those are real dollars in your pocket. Not today, they're not real dollars, but when it really counts towards the end of your career, those are very real dollars in your pocket. So I think understanding that is a huge component of it. As healthcare professionals, I do think it is important that you get curious about our CEU benefits. Number one is, for many of us who are NATA or GLADA members, or if you're not in GLADA, but you're in MATA or you're in MOATA or whatever that may be, is does your employer reimburse for your professional membership dues or any component of your professional membership dues? I think, the NATA and GLADA, speaking for them, want as much membership as possible. And if your employer is incentivizing folks to be members, I think that's a pretty cool thing to be inclusive of. And then the other part of that is CEU benefits. What are the CEU benefits and how much is that annually? What courses could that look like? Is there any pay for if you were to go to a conference, any sort of like a travel reimbursement or travel pay? What happens to your licensure? Who's paying for your licensure? So those, I think, are the type of things as clinicians, when we have to uphold continuing ed, how is your employer then supporting the continuing ed? And what I would say is probably one of the, not direct dollars in your pocket, but is your employer offering really great continuing ed opportunities? Or are you expected to go out and find your own? Do they have MedBridge? Is there a MedBridge subscription? Those type of things, I think, again, they may not be direct dollars on your paycheck, but like Thomas mentioned, when you start to add up all of those things, it really can, like, the number on the bottom is not the same as the base salary that you're getting. And I think you have to put value in some of those things that you might not use that today, but you may use that down the road, and it will be very impactful to you should you ever need to use that benefit.
I'd say that was a huge aspect, is thinking about the future. Nobody does. These benefits are huge because, think about disability benefits. You go out, maybe you have, a surgery, something happens in your life. That could be make or break for you. Think about life insurance. Obviously nobody wants to talk about that and think about that, but it's huge. Is there going to be something for your family at the end of the day? And thinking more about medical, just like you said, fertility, it is a huge thing. Are you looking to start a family? Are you looking to plan into the future? Maybe you're not doing it right now, but you might want to in the future, maybe 5 years from now. So if you think, this is a long-term company you want to stay with, look at the benefits. That could really change it for you. Not everyone's going to have certain things covered under their medical plan. Everyone thinks, I have Blue Cross, I'm going to Blue Cross. It's the same plan. It's not. Every employer's plan is different. Do you really want to dive in there and understand that benefit? Don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask more and more. I always say, candidates, we tell them, come straight to us. We want to answer these questions for you. So bring it up. Don't be afraid. Just go ahead and ask it. Even if it's personal questions, we want to help you through that. But that's going to help you make that decision. What else is out there? Because these are extra dollars that at the end of the day, you will have to pay if you don't have coverage. So it's very important to think about that for the future.
And I would also say, I mentioned this before we started recording, but, especially if, you are not currently on a plan that you pay for yourself, so you might still be on your parents' plans. Again, that might not be something that you're thinking about or need that money today, but at some point, there's a potential that you're going to go on and have to elect your own benefits, which comes with, by and large, it's probably going to come with some sort of a premium, whatever that may be, right? So if your premium is, let's just say it was $100 a month for your healthcare, and maybe your employer pays 60% of that and you're responsible for 40% of that, you need to plan for that at a certain point in time. So if you're 25, you may not be planning for that, but when you're creating your budget for 26 and after, I would highly recommend that you are, thinking about the money that you're going to have to pay for that health insurance, the dental, and the vision, making sure that you've thought through that. So that way, when it comes time to elect the benefits, it isn't like, well, I don't, right now I don't have that room in my paycheck. You really want to make sure that you're planning for that.
I have a quick question. So mine's a little bit changing topics to NATA because it's kind of networking too. So I'm going to the NATA conference this year, and I was wondering if there's any advice on best ways to network or like set up meetings to expand your network, if you will.
I have loads to say on this, but I'm I'm going to have Gabby maybe go first from her perspective as somebody in talent recruitment, because I think her perspective is very valuable. And then I'm going to talk specifically around just being an AT.
Yeah, I would say networking definitely goes a long way. For us in talent acquisition, LinkedIn is just like our best friend, right? So as you are at the conferences and gaining information, I would say connect with these individuals via LinkedIn. So you build your network around, the people that are kind of like-minded, have those, you know, s- same industry, that sort of thing, just so you can always see like when opportunities become available. A lot of people speak to different opportunities via LinkedIn, but even if like you're just in the job market, it's okay to reach out to different professionals and say, hey, I'm in the market. Do you know of an opportunity that's coming up? Or just wanted to kind of let you know that, I'm putting my feelers out there, that sort of thing. People do it not only to like TA, but to each other all the time. I have professionals send me resumes of people who, and we may not even have openings, but they'll send resumes like, hey, I know this person, they're awesome, they're in the market. When something comes up, can you keep them in mind? And things like that actually do happen, right? Like, so we'll keep, a list of potential new associates. And when opportunities come up, we will reach out to them. So I would say build that LinkedIn network based off of your contacts and your connections that you're meeting at different conferences and things like that. And just continue to share good content via LinkedIn and continue to just keep connecting and networking with people throughout your career.
Yeah, and as it relates to for NATA, and I can speak to GLADA as well, being familiar with kind of what that booth space looks like. NATA can, if you've never been, it can be very overwhelming. I mean, it's like aisles and aisles and aisles, and it could take you a full day just to kind of get through. I think you need to ask yourself, what purposes do you have? Are your purposes to network in order to meet potential job opportunities? Are your purposes to network because you're looking for maybe the best price on a certain item, tape or Band-Aids or something? Or is your purpose that you're really looking for something that addresses a specific aspect of rehab that you just haven't, you've got some space in your room, you have some space in your budget, you're kind of looking for maybe the next best thing as it relates to rehab equipment. So I think you need to go in with a purpose. Now, you might want all of those things or none of them. But I think as you go through, introduce yourself, you might not have business cards yet. So that's where I really like Gabby's idea of doing LinkedIn. I'm sure most or many of the people that you'll interact with have a LinkedIn profile. So that way you can stay connected to them without having to have a physical business card, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have you're not in your first role yet, you might not have a business card. So beefing up your LinkedIn profile to have a good profile picture. So you don't necessarily need to go out and get like a professional headshot, but I also wouldn't take a screen grab from like your Instagram profile either. Like have it be on a, professional dress and, on a neutral colored wall or in something like that. And then put a descriptor, like, where are you? Where do you live? What are the things that you're looking for? What are your skills? All those things that you can potentially put in your LinkedIn profile. I think those serve as a great resource for people. So go in with a purpose or have maybe some ideas of what your purpose is, and then find those folks. And then what I would say is attending the conferences regularly is actually a really good thing to build a network. I joke, and I really am joking, but I love GLADA because it's like a high school reunion. Like I go there every year. I don't even make it I don't make it past the door. I've been in the hallway for an hour and a half because you keep running into people that you've met over the years. And so the consistency of attending, I think, really helps to build the network. At NATA in particular, I would introduce yourselves to some of the speakers that you may go to. And you can do that at GLADA as well. But I think actually introducing yourself afterwards. So if you go to a really great talk and the person who is presenting is hanging around afterwards, go ahead and introduce yourself to them. again, try to get connected with them on LinkedIn and stay in tune with if any new research that they may be putting out, any new presentations that they may be doing. The more that you can just subtly connect with people, social media does help with that. It helps us stay connected a little bit more. It takes years to build a network. So you're not going to go to NATA the very first time and, you know, walk out and know a million people, but that consistency of you introducing yourself every time you go to one of these conferences to a multitude of people is going to continue to build that network for you. And when you've been doing it for a really, really long time, I have been, it explodes and it definitely grows, but it does take time for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Great advice. I'm looking forward to the NATA conference as well.
Right, so our next question is going to be, what are your best end of interview questions, either that you've asked as an interviewee or that you've heard when you're interviewing an applicant?
Abigail, I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yes, I'm sorry, can you hear me? Yes, okay. What are the best end of interview questions that you've either asked as an applicant or that you've heard as an interviewing an applicant?
Oh, I've like heard them all. So, but I would say, you know, for one, I don't think any question is a dumb question. Like, and I seriously do say that. Like, I welcome all questions, but I will say, I think it's important to tailor your questions like to your interviewer. So if you know, like you're meeting with a recruiter versus like an AT hiring manager, the conversation will be different, right? Because this person is recruiting for the role versus a hiring manager who's been in AT, knows the job backwards and forwards, knows the affiliate, knows what you're about to get into. So I would say tailor your line of questioning. So for the recruiter, definitely speak to some of the company specific questions, like describing the company culture. What's your favorite thing about working for this company? How do you see your company evolving over the next 5 years? How would you say the company demonstrates their values and things of that nature? So I would say, like, you know, again, just kind of tailor your questioning. And then when you're talking to someone, like, let's say your AT hiring manager, then you can get into the like, well, can you elaborate on the day-to-day responsibilities? What will like my days look like? You know, talk about like, you know, if there's clinic opportunities and things of that nature, or even the hiring managers like leadership style, like ask them direct questions about, you know, what kind of leader they believe themselves to be, right? And how much you can depend on them as a leader, things of that nature. So, and then I would always say, after every conversation, like no matter who you're speaking with, you know, don't leave anything open. So in terms of like next steps, if the recruiter or the hiring manager isn't volunteering that information, definitely go after it. So, hey, when can I expect to hear from someone else, you know, or, you know, someone pertaining to the role? What are next steps in the process, just so I can follow up appropriately. I think that's very appropriate to ask at the end, just so you know what's next. You kind of define those expectations before you end the conversation.
I love those questions, Gabby. I don't have anything to add. Those are all great.
Yeah, definitely echo that. And I think that's the biggest thing is asking the questions. Just ask. I mean, don't be afraid to ask those questions, but also think about your own time. I mean, yeah, you want to be respectful of their time, but be respectful of your own time. You have very limited time to make an impression, but also to, you know, have them make an impression. Get the detail that you need from them. So avoid the filler questions. I know sometimes we don't know what to ask, so we think straight to, you know, what's the culture like? I mean, that's a good initial question, maybe when you're having your phone screening. But when you're talking with your hiring manager, get down to the real questions you want to know. If you want to know about the team dynamic, you want to know about the structure, you have very specific questions, go for those. So take the time. I've learned that too. I've been guilty of it, jumping into an interview and just going off with whatever question I have at that moment, but I found that it's more useful for my time, and then I actually learn enough about the company, whether I actually want to join it, is, by asking those questions. Sit down, detail it, go through it, think about, what do I want in this role? What do I want in my next role? What type of career growth do I want? And looking into that, because that's questions that you'll want to ask. I mean, is there professional development? How will you develop me in this role? I mean, what support's going to be available for me? So all of these questions you want to think about, what's going to impact you. So think about what you want to know and what's going to help you, and ask those questions.
As a hiring manager, I think I want to make sure that you feel that you've gotten everything that you've needed. I think to Thomas and Gabby's point, I would say there's a component of, because many times people will say, and maybe we just do such an awesome job interviewing, but many times people will say, I don't think I have any questions. I think you answered everything. And I don't want you to, make something up in the moment. But what I will say is, I think at that point, it becomes a little bit less about what the question is and just the fact that you're engaging in conversation. So if we've had a really awesome conversation and it's been a back and forth and you've kind of asked questions along the way, I could understand if you got to the end of the interview and you're like, you know what, I feel like we've really covered a lot of great things. I'm not sure I have anything else. But if it's been a little bit more of a dialogue of hiring manager asks the question and then interviewee answers, and then hiring manager asks the question, and it's a little bit less of a dialogue, I am looking for somebody who is engaging, because all I do is translate to, okay, this is the conversation. I want to envision this person having a conversation with an athlete and telling them, hey, I think you might have sprained your ankle. I want to envision this person having a conversation with a parent, with a coach, with an employer, with a physician. And that in the moment, that's what I'm doing. I'm translating what our conversation is. I'm trying to figure out how will this go when they're talking to our stakeholders, who are our patients and our clients. And so I would encourage you to have us go in with something, a list of some things that you're curious about, just so that there is that dialogue and that it shows that you have interest in the position that you're applying for.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I even thought about that just interviewing myself for some roles, and I think that's the biggest thing to me is sometimes I already know who you are. I've looked at your background. I know your professional background. I know you have the skill set. I know I can get you to where you need to be, but I want to know that it's going to be the right fit, that we're going to work well together. I want to know that you're interested in this role. You're interested in the company. You're interested in this team. You're really engaged. I want to feel that. So a lot of that, and when you're with that hiring manager, exactly, that's what you want to do. You want to make sure you have that dialogue. Think about questions ahead of time. Think about what you want to talk about. Think about the impression you want to make, who you are and how you'll fit in that team, and just make sure you vocalize that. Don't sit back and don't just, not think of it. I know it's hard at the end. Sometimes you don't really have any extra questions, and that's okay. But just keep that dialogue going and just make sure that you really feel, that connection.
Yeah, and I would also add, so Thomas brings up a great point that you've already submitted your resume with your application. So the interviewer is looking at your background and experience and expertise. But I can't stress enough that you have access to LinkedIn, like utilize it. So you can also look at the interviewer's resume and their background and their expertise and come prepared with questions like tailored to that specific person. I can't tell you how impressive it is to me when I meet with a candidate who was like, oh, so you've been at Athletico for a year and this is a different industry for you. So tell me what brought you there. And I'm like, okay, so you did your homework. So it's quite impressive. Or someone could say to Payten, oh, you've been at Athletico for 19 years. Talk about your career path and what that could potentially look like for me. I think that is very impressive without Payten telling you that she's been with Athletico for 19 years. So do your homework, look at the person, and get a feel for who you're about to talk to and tailor those questions to the interviewer.
All right, awesome. The last question that we had prepared was kind of a hot button topic in secondary school athletic training. What are the benefits for potentially both the athletic trainer and for an employer to be employed through a physical therapy company like Athletico or a hospital system versus being directly employed through a school district?
This is an awesome question. I feel like I could go, this could have been an hour long just talking about this. I think it's a great question. What I'm gonna preface it with my opinion only. And that is that I feel like at times in the industry, there's a weird dynamic between whether I am at a high school employed by the high school or I am at a high school employed by an outreach company. And I don't know why that is. And I wish I could put my finger on it. And what I would say is that regardless of which one it is, let's just say in a secondary school setting, regardless of which one it is, I think collectively as a profession, we should be very supportive of each other. Whether you're employed by the school, whether you're employed by a company like Athletico, we are all in it for the same purpose, especially if we're in athletics. We want to watch our student athletes thrive. We want to be there for them when, things unfortunately aren't going well. We want to help them get back to the playing field. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So I just have to say that first, because I do feel like at times there's a little bit of a weirdness of if you're one or the other, like kind of like their sides or something. And there really is no reason for that. So I think it goes back to what I said initially, is talking about what are you valuing in your work, all the dynamics that make up your work. So I talked about commute and your schedule and all of this kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that you really should think about is values. So whether that's the values of a school system or it's the values of a company, I think you're going to find something that resonates with you. What are their core values? What is their mission? That's going to help direct you. So that's number one. I do think thinking through some of it. So let's just say community, for example. If you're hired directly on by a school, maybe I've seen it happen many times where they're an alum of the school, and that's like match made in heaven. So somebody who went through a school system and now they have an opportunity as an alumnus of the school to come back and work for the school. That is an unbelievable opportunity. You're bought into the community. This is where you want to, potentially have your family and be here for a really long time. And that's the setup of the school. This school in particular has a job that's employed through the school district. So that's great. Potentially, if you're looking for an opportunity for advancement, so maybe you want to be an associate athletic trainer. So that's the role, that's the title that we have. But you're curious on what is the advancement. So if you go into a school system, is there any opportunity to advance outside of the athletic trainer or being the athletic trainer for the school? If you come to a company like Athletico, you may say, hey, I want to be an associate, but are there other opportunities for you? I can tell you from our perspective, we actually have not only associate, but we have intermediate and senior athletic trainers, all servicing agreements, but they have different job responsibilities. So is there upward mobility in your role? Is that something that you are looking for? Maybe one day you want to be in a leadership position. Maybe you want to be a manager of AT services. Maybe you want to be a director. Maybe you want to do AT for a while and then go into HR or go into marketing. So if those things are important for you, I do think that may push you one way or the other for which one makes the most sense. If let's just say you're from a rural community and you want to go home and the one high school or college in town has a setup of one or the other, you may be more open to work for either if it means that you get to be at that school in particular. So I wouldn't discredit either. I think that you should explore both. And then again, like I said, kind of do this internal audit of the things that are important to you and have an understanding of where you really feel at home. There are different expectations. I think in the Athletico model, it's actually not uncommon for us to have multiple athletic trainers at a school where one person might be the district employee and you might have another person who's the Athletico employee. So we work in like a mixed hybrid model all of the time. And we have a lot of success in it as well, where the individual who's employed by the school, they might have to sit in certain meetings for the school, right? But the individual employed by Athletico, they have this massive network. So let's just say something changes in the Practice Act, or there's a CEU that Athletico is offering. They both kind of can benefit from that. So we actually have these hybrid models that work really, really well. And so I think both are great. And I don't necessarily know that there's pros/cons. What I do think is that you really have to dial into what you're looking for in your employer. And again, that forward thinking of where do you want to be in 5 years and where do you want to be in 10 years? And is this employer, can I do that through this employer? Or if it's something else that you want to do, is this employer going to provide me the stepping stone to get to the next thing? So it can be hard when, you're 23, 24, 25 potentially, or even early in your career, in your 20s, getting into your 30s, and you're still kind of exploring. You might not have those answers, but that's where I would really rely on peers that may be a year or two older than you and see what their experience has been. I'd also say any mentors that you have. So when you talk about that networking, it might be old professors that you have, it might be old preceptors that you have. Any of those people, really, really lean on them as you start to get into the job hunt, and talk to them, start to interview, find out what you're hearing from certain entities, and go back to them and use them as a resource to help guide you. So again, let me be clear, there's pros and cons in every job, whether you are a barista at Starbucks or you're a neurosurgeon. There's always going to be things that you love about your job, and there's probably going to be a few things where you're like, oh man, this isn't my favorite part of my job. But as long as what you love and what gives you energy outweighs, what maybe isn't giving you energy, I think you're probably going to find yourself in a really good spot.
All right, do we have any questions from our audience? You can either unmute or type anything in the chat.
I have a quick question, actually. Back to benefits, but this probably is more of a Thomas question. What would you deem probably like the top 5 most important benefits for like a new grad to like look at first when they get the benefit package?
Ooh.
I know it's kind of a hard question.
I know it's a hard question because everything's personalized, and that's the thing, is you need to think about what you need, what you as yourself, as your family, as your future family. You need to know what you're looking for. I mean, you think about like additional benefits like hospital indemnity, critical illness. These could be really good things. Are you planning on having a baby? Hospital indemnity right there, you can get a cash benefit that's going to enhance your current benefits. So it's going to be on top of your medical benefit. But maybe you're not having a baby, so that doesn't appeal to you. But you maybe you have a surgery coming up, short-term disability. I mean, are you going to have coverage? I mean, is your PTO limited? STD can come in and help that. So then that can really offset a lot of that income that you're missing. So it really depends. I'd say, other than medical, dental, vision, the biggest things to me are life insurance, disability insurance, and wellness and well-being. You really need to think about yourself and your well-being, and you have to really take charge of that. So what resources does this company offer you? I mean, what are they providing? Sometimes in your medical benefit, you think medical insurance, they're going to cover the doctor visit, but there's so much more to that. Like Payten said earlier, fertility, that could be a benefit that's not included and not always included in a medical benefit. Sure, if it's medically necessary, but if we're talking about outside of that, and maybe you need assistance, or you're a same-sex couple, or you're a single parent, fertility and family planning benefits could be huge, and that could be part of your medical package. Telehealth, that's another thing. Sometimes you have your general telehealth, but do they have behavioral, mental health? That could be something that you're looking for. Do you have a therapist that you're working with? Are they covered under that plan? So it's really looking at the benefits that are customized to you. Do they offer enough? Is there enough choice? Is there enough what you're looking for? Because maybe they just don't have the benefits that you need, or you want. And what's going to offset that for you? Is the income that you're receiving, your base salary, enough to cover it somewhere else? Or do you have a spouse's plan that you can jump on that it really kind of mixes the two. Sometimes I see people on the spouse's medical plan, but then joining the dental plan with their employer. So you really just want to dive in, find out what works for you, and take every resource that you can from that company, because sometimes these systems will have the ability to kind of guide you through that. Maybe they'll have these advocacy groups that you can talk to that can walk you through benefits. That will change it for you. So it's making sure you look through the whole package and find out what they're offering and see if it fits you. Not every employer is going to have what you're looking for. The demographic is different. At Athletico, I mean, we're really high growth and we have a lot of different employees. It's a vast, I mean, we're across over 29 states, so we have 900 clinics. I mean, it's huge. So we have a lot of different employees, so we have a lot of different benefits. Sometimes if you're looking at a smaller organization or maybe even a school, like Payten was mentioning, maybe they don't have as expansive. So it really depends. And maybe that's okay for you. So really just dive deep into that and look into what you specifically need.
Yeah, and I would actually piggyback off that and just, again, like Thomas said, think about your specific needs. I know 10 years ago, when I was in the job market, I was really thinking about like my personal goals. Like for one, I wanted braces as an adult and I wanted to get LASIK eye surgery, right? And so I was looking for in the benefit package a company who offered adult orthodontia, which Athletico does, thank God, and a company who had a vision plan that could help me with my LASIK eye surgery. These are things that can be really, really expensive, especially as someone coming out of school, first job. Like you don't want to have to cover those type of costs on your own. So like think about what your personal needs are and kind of fish for that. And it's okay to ask those questions before like accepting a position. Like totally go all in and ask for the specifics that you may be looking for.
Yes, I mean, I get those questions all the time too. And that's, something I mentioned earlier is every employer is different. Don't think you're going to get the same benefit package just because they have the same Blue Cross or Cigna, your Delta Dentals. I mean, everyone's different. So like Gabby said, think about orthodontia. Think about, maybe you have a crown or an implant or an athletic mouth guard. These might not be covered by that plan. They're not that common. In adult orthodontia, it's not common. And sometimes it's not covered for dependents. So looking at that, I mean, does this employer cover that? Are they going to cover this surgery that I have coming up? I mean, how much of it is covered? Some people think I get dental insurance, that means everything's covered. That's not the case. Sometimes you have annual maximum. So there's a certain amount that the benefit will pay out. So think about what's going on in your life. Think about what might be going on in the future, your family, and really tailor that. And don't be afraid to ask those questions, because I know our team gets those questions all the time and we love it. I mean, we want to be able to guide you through that process and make sure this is the right fit for you.
I would also be cognizant if you have providers that you are already with and if it's within the network. So for example, let's just say that in OBGYN or your primary care or maybe a therapist, if you have the providers that when you're on your parents' plan and then you're transitioning into having your own plan, is the plan that you're selecting inclusive of those providers? That may sway you one way or the other if your provider is going to be covered by the insurance.
It's a very good point. Yeah, I mean, every network's different. That's the thing, is a lot of employers will choose different networks and for different reasons. I mean, it could be the coverage level. So if you have somebody you really want to stick with, check into that. And you can do that. I mean, you just reach out, you ask who the network is with, and then you take a look at that. I mean, and that goes for everything, not just medical, dental, vision, all of it. You want to make sure that you're covering your bases and looking into that, because that could really hurt down the road. Because maybe you want to stay with that provider, but now what does out-of-network coverage look like? Sometimes the plan doesn't cover out-of-network coverage, or it's very minimal. So you could be paying a really high bill. So really understand that and really dive into that so that you know what you're getting yourself into.
All right, do we have any other questions from our audience? Okay, well, thank you so much to everyone for coming tonight. And thank you to Payten, Thomas, and Gabrielle for presenting. We will be posting this video on YouTube after the seminar. So thank you all for attending.
Thanks.
Thank you
have a
so
good night.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yep, see ya.